Good evening, everyone. We're truly glad to have you back with us tonight. There's something about gas stations. That eerie silence in the middle of nowhere. The flickering lights. The way the world feels like it's paused just for a moment. Tonight, we bring you two terrifying stories. True accounts of strange figures, restless souls, and dark coincidences that all happened at gas stations. So grab your blanket, turn off the lights, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe and join our growing community of night listeners. You're watching Sleep Horror Stories. I'm writing this email to share something that changed my life forever. Please don't mention my name. I'd like to stay anonymous. All I want is to share this experience. At the time, I was just a 17-year-old kid. I worked at a gas station outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I pumped gas and cleaned windshields to earn extra tips. I worked the night shift because during the day, I attended night school. The gas station was near the edge of town, and I shared the shift with a coworker, an older man in his 40s, who was kind enough to pick me up and drop me off each night near my house. One early morning, around 3:30 a.m., it was just the two of us at the station. Everything was quiet when a car suddenly pulled up next to my pump. It had heavily tinted windows, so I couldn't see inside. The driver lowered her window. She was a young woman. She asked for a full tank and then got out, telling me she was going into the store to buy snacks for her son, who was sitting in the back seat. She kindly asked me to keep an eye on him. I said sure, no problem. She smiled, thanked me, and walked off. Through the dark windows, I could see some faint movement in the back seat. The kid seemed restless. I finished filling the tank and waited for the woman to return so she could pay and maybe let me clean the windows. She eventually came out with 2 bags full of junk food and smiled again. But this time, her smile was unsettling. Something about it fell off. Still, I smiled back out of courtesy. She asked, "Is my son still in the car?" I nodded. She pulled out her wallet, paid me, and even tipped me for watching him. She got back in the car, handed the snacks to the back seat, and said lovingly, "Look, baby, everything I got for you." I figured she'd leave, but then she looked at me one last time and said, "Say hi to my son, Brian." She rolled down the back window. Sitting there was a corpse. A teenage boy, reduced to skin and bones, wearing a cap and fully dressed. I froze. I don't even remember how I reacted. All I know is I felt a deep, paralyzing fear. My coworker must have noticed because he ran over to me immediately. Before I could speak, the woman rolled up the windows and just drove off. I was in shock, unable to move or speak. My coworker kept shaking me, asking what had happened. Eventually, I was able to tell him everything. Without saying a word, he pulled out his phone and called the police, giving them a description of the car and the direction it had taken. Then, he took me home because I was in no condition to keep working. The next night, he told me the police had contacted him. Apparently, the woman had been reported missing by her family in another state. She'd lost her mind after her son died from an illness and had disappeared shortly after. Nobody knew what had happened to her or where she had buried her child. Turns out, break time equals 0. 5S// she never did. I'm now 28, and although I've come to terms with that terrifying moment, I know I'll carry it with me forever. Before I start, I want to say that it took me a while to work up the courage to share this story. It's deeply personal because it involves someone I love with all my heart. My mother. Still, I want to hear what others think. Because to this day, I don't fully understand what happened. I won't give my name, but I'm a 48-year-old woman and a longtime listener of this channel. I always knew one day I'd be hearing my own story read by you. It happened during a family trip a few years back. We were headed to San Antonio, Texas, to spend New Year's and explore nearby historic towns. In the car were my parents, my husband, our 2 kids, and me. It was a long drive, and by the time night fell, we were still on the road. It was already past midnight when I told my husband I needed to use the restroom. He stopped at the first gas station we saw. It was one of those isolated rest stops. Barely lit, almost deserted. Everyone else was asleep, except for my husband and our youngest. So I went alone. There was just one other car there. But as I walked in, the people inside were already leaving. The restroom was empty. While I was inside the stall, I heard the restroom door open. It creaked loudly. I figured someone else had come in, and then I saw a pair of feet step into the next stall. I recognized the shoes. They were my mom's. She was wearing those exact khaki pants, too. I called out, relieved. "There you are, Mom. Glad you came in. We've still got hours to drive." But she didn't respond. That was strange. I spoke again. "Mom, why aren't you answering?" Still nothing. Something about the silence unsettled me. So I pulled up my pants and stepped out. Walked straight to her stall and knocked. "Mom, are you okay? You're scaring me." Then she started crying. I swear, it was her voice. The exact sound of my mother crying. I panicked. I begged her to open the door. "Please, Mom, talk to me. What's going on? Why are you crying?" But she didn't answer. Just kept sobbing. That's when the main restroom door creaked open again. I turned around, and standing there was my mom, alive, looking at me, confused. She said, "Are you okay? You were taking a while, so I came to check on you." I froze. I couldn't speak. She walked over and held my hands. I must have looked pale. The moment I could move, I turned to check the other stall. It was empty. The door wasn't even locked. I dragged her out of that restroom. Before we got back in the car, I told her what happened. She looked stunned. Kept asking if I was sure. She said nobody else had pulled into the gas station since I went inside. And certainly no one wearing the exact clothes she had on. She chalked it up to exhaustion. But I know what I saw. I didn't talk about it in front of the kids. But that night, I barely spoke. My husband asked if everything was okay. I just told him I'd explain later. During the trip, I told him everything. He didn't know what to say either. But 6 days later, when we got back, I received the worst call of my life. It was my dad. He told me my mom had passed away. A heart attack. During the night. To this day, I can't help but wonder, was that some kind of warning? Or was it just coincidence? My husband tells me not to torture myself with that question, but it still haunts me. Thanks for listening. Your thoughts are welcome.